Blitz dragons are the niggas of the dragon world. That sounds like some probably Polly would say, But follow me here. Let's get into the lore of my manga. They're all based in the same world and on my D&D game. So let's talk about Blitz dragons and why I said what I said. Well, much like their Drakeen half-dragon cousins, Blitz dragons have a unique origin story. These are what's known as turbo harpies, and they fly somewhat like jets. The Sky Dancer dragons figured out that if you either pound them up and shove them in the hoo-ha, they make great lubricant. Hell, you could even just throw them right in the ha-ha and manually line the cave, if you know what I mean. By the way, since Castellan wouldn't outlaw it, and it was so inhumane that Mount Moltra, who oversees this entire area, because Castellan is semi-sovereign to Mount Moltra, they had to create a law called the Humane Lubrication Acquisitions Tenet that would outlaw the practice of just shoving them in your hoo-ha and manually beating them to death with your slong sling. Moving on, in 1220, a Sky Dancer dragon, which was sitting in effectively the director position of land development that gives out housing, he put together the Tenet True Dragon Housing Preference into place. And this was a bombshell of a tenet, which is basically a law. And it says that Blitz dragons are akin to Drakeens. They were spawned from the union of pure and true dragons and what is little more than a sex toy. In no rational world would they or should they ever stand on the same plateau as us, and thus I'm officially restricting their right to live above the 50% threshold of Castellan. And Castellan is a dragon haven where dragons majority live, and it's settled on a mountain. And what they are talking about, the 50% threshold, is that there is a single loop that goes down the mountain. And if you are 50% above that mountain, you can't actually live there if you're a Blitz dragon. So this issue was fought so heavily that the Spirit of Fire and Metal, a big dog of Mount Moltra, a man they called the God of Red Dragons, Igni had to pass the Divine Doctrine Blitz Dragon Acknowledgement. And a Divine Doctrine is the literal highest level of law that can be passed. Only Igni himself can override a Divine Doctrine. While all that had been going on, in Mount Moltra's Dragon Haven, they do have some laws to protect Blitz dragons from facing that discrimination, but there was still a cultural war that was going on. Because a lot of dragons didn't necessarily see Blitz dragons as one of them. They didn't fly like them. They had a lot more breath weapons than them. They might have came from a dragon on half their lineage. While this was supposed to put Blitz dragons down, it actually pulled them together as a community in Layer 3 along the north, west, and south zones. This heavy population of Blitz dragons formed a very strong sense of identity as far as their species goes. While all dragons do definitely have some pride in being dragons, Blitz dragons have their own form of music, they have their own entertainment. Because Blitz dragons are physically smaller than the other dragons by quite a bit, they are very confrontational. In fact, they are not afraid to stick up for their rights, not only of them, but for the other species that exist in their domains. You want to know more lore from the mating manual? Join the Discord or hit up the Ruby Gold Guild to get access to the entries that's been created and get a diamond if you want to get an original character into the lore. You can always just buy the mangas. There are still a few copies left.